Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Well, guys, could this year get any crazier? Well, in this year, we actually have a chance that we could have two hurricanes making landfall on the same day in different locations in the U.S. We're talking about how records are falling everywhere. And, here is another one that could potentially be a record breaker. So you have two tropical depressions going on, number 13 and number 14. And as you see here, you may be looking at landfall, potentially of one of them along the Texas or Louisiana coast, and of the other one on the Florida coast, or it's still early, so we're going to watch. Anybody basically along the Gulf and along the southeast need to keep an eye on this. This is for the first time since the Great Depression that it's possible two tropical systems can make landfall on the mainland U.S. at almost the same time. Man, we have everything going, don't we, right now? As we take a look at the first one here, Tropical Depression 13, and you see its projection come Tuesday, Monday even, it could be making landfall somewhere in Florida. And of course, along the way, it will be impacting other islands, including potentially, St. Martin, beautiful place. Been there a couple of times. Was blessed to get to see its beauty, and Puerto Rico as well. And we're looking at Tropical Depression 14. You see, it could impact the Yucatan Peninsula, and then potentially be heading towards Houston and Corpus Christi, or perhaps also heading towards New Orleans. So, guys, we got to really keep an eye open on these two storms. Meanwhile, we have fires galore in the west. California especially. You see wildfires force new evacuations, threatens thousands of structures, as many as 30,000 structures. And Governor Newsom has declared a state of emergency. It's really apparent there's a lot of smoke in the air. And, think about all the things we got going on right now. Of course, we still have everywhere across the world the plague upon the land. We have all sorts of flooding going on. Three Gorges Dam situation is still up in the air and very, very tenuous. And we have wildfires all over the West right now. And, it's just incredible what we're seeing. As we talked about lightning strikes, starting some of these wildfires, you had a helicopter crash, and that sparked a wildfire, and that helicopter was actually trying to put out wildfires. As we see here, we're going to take a look at some photos. Tens of thousands of evacuations in northern and central California. But we're going to take a look at a map, and, it looks like the West is just completely ablaze right now. It really is. It's so ominous. And as we made our way back into Arizona, you could start to see some smoke in certain areas as you get closer to California. Everything looks very, very hazy, very smoky, very ominous.
It really does. It's like you're coming in on Mars or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, it feels... there's just a sense of foreboding. The closer we were heading towards the west coast today. So the whole world seems to have something it's battling right now, just looking at some of those fires. And as we said, fires and blackouts, don't forget the rolling blackouts, the massive heat wave breaking records, 130 degrees in Death Valley. So we have the Pine Gulch fire in Colorado. It's remapped to over 121,000 acres. Still the second largest in the history of the state. It's just incredible what we're seeing going on. And actually, if you look at it, like I was saying, does that not look like the entire West almost is ablaze?
It really does. I mean, this is insane. I've never seen this before. I don't know where it's coming from.
And the only reason some of these areas, like we were just up in here, and this is where we were talking to the Navajo people, I mean, there's nothing to burn. That's why there's no fires there. There's nothing to burn there. This is all, basically Air Force Base, and there's nothing to burn there. But look at the west. Look at the size of the Pine Gulch and these other fires. It's just incredible.
It is. It's. I mean, jaw-dropping.
It is. And so we had that 6.8 and 6.9 quakes. And now Mount Sinabung, the volcano, is erupting again. So, yeah, Indonesia over here by Sumatra, the whole ring of fire is pretty active. And we have plagues of beetles, spotted lantern flies, and Asian longhorn ticks, wiping out forest, crops, and livestock. It's, it's biblical.
Extremely. A lot of things are biblical. It's like it's coming into focus now.
But it's more than the Bible. Like we're saying, we're talking about the Hopi prophecies. We were reading them again today as we were driving and listening to them. It's not just the Hopis. All different people all over the world have prophecies of this time. So it's a universal thing. No one group, no one creed, no one religion has a lock on this. As this is something, again, it's about our collective consciousness. So you got beetles destroying forest. We saw a lot of that with the pine bark beetles in some areas. And you got the spotted lantern fly, and this is in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey. And they, again, can do a lot of damage. And boy, oh boy, those ugly green worms destroyed our tomato plants. We got one tomato, guys. That's all we got, one tomato, and everything else was wiped out. But we do have a bunch of squash going as well as some other stuff.
We do.
And ticks. They carry a lot of pathogens. And I could tell you that from firsthand experience, having had Lyme's disease and losing my dog at that time to Lyme's disease and babesia. And we just always used to, as soon as we got snow, we would go out and hike and go up to a place called Sleeping Giant, which is up in Connecticut around Hamden. And was my favorite place to go hiking as soon as you had fresh snowfall so I could see all the animal trails. And it was the end of January. It's like January 31st. And you wouldn't think ticks would be around, but that's when I got bit, and it was on my arm. And just didn't know it was there until like 2 days later. And there I had the bullseye pattern. And then about 3 weeks later, all of a sudden felt like I was 90 years old, at about 29 years of age. Wasn't a good situation. So we have the Asian longhorn ticks. And, be aware of this as well. They're native to Eastern Asia, but they have made their way to other countries, including Australia, New Zealand, and the U.S. as well. But any tick is not a good tick, in my opinion. So researchers measure the Earth's magnetic field in Jerusalem in 586 BC, which is an interesting time frame because, again, it's a period in which you had a lot of famine, which what happens when you have famine and people are desperate and hungry, you end up getting a lot of war. And that's what we basically have. And these are stories that are down in the Bible of this time. So they're looking for clues as to what is causing these things. And for one, magnetic anomalies can be an indicator of what's to come. And we certainly have magnetic anomalies going on right now. The South Atlantic anomaly appears to be splitting. I saw a great. And I showed it on a couple of videos, and I got to see if I could figure out where it was again. It was I don't know if the guy even called himself the science guy. It wasn't Bill Nye. But he was showing plasma in a ball, and he was relating it to the intensity of a magnetic field. So we do know that as it weakens, we won't necessarily just have one single North Pole, one single South Pole. It could break up into multiples. Things could get really, really crazy, to say the least. And so when they see these fluctuations and they can measure them back in history, and then all of a sudden see that there's crop losses and famine and crazy weather, it all goes together.
It really does. And, this is happening over and over and over. And now it's time for us, I feel.
Oh, we're in it. We are definitely in it. So 15 EMP-proof survival items. And it's interesting that a lot of people are talking about EMP-proofing things now. For one, we should EMP and CME-proof things, right? As, today we were going to get hit. and by a small CME, thankfully. I don't know of any major events, but I tell you, the technology has been acting really wonky. The phones have been doing really crazy things. Things have been super glitchy.
It really has been strange.
So as we talked about, 90% of the people, it's been estimated, would die after a year without power. That's crazy. You would think it's crazy, but this is our society nowadays. Now, back in the old days, people survived by chopping wood to keep warm, burning things. And, you just had to deal with the temperature of where you were, get under some shade, hop in a river if you're lucky enough to have a river by you. Although when we look at, say, Phoenix, how many people could survive in Phoenix if the grid goes down? That's going to be an area where I could say, oh boy, I could see it. I could see a lot of people not making it. 115 degrees on a regular basis.
Well, a heat wave seems like it's one of the most dangerous weather things to me.
Yeah, most definitely. And then conversely, if you're counting on having your electricity to stay warm and you're somewhere like International Falls, and you're not prepared, you don't have a wood-burning stove or anything, then it's going to be real tough to make it through the winter. Blankets, stockpile blankets, warm clothes, books, and this is another thing I want to share with you guys. I was in a gas station in Arizona, and it was interesting because a guy came in, and I don't know, he must follow some of our friends' channels, and channels like this one, because he came in and said, do you got maps? Paper maps. Maps that are going to be there when the grid goes down. And the girl behind the counter said, no, we don't. He's like, what is wrong with people? What are you going to do when an EMP or CME comes? And I was thinking, oh my God, he's one of our guys.
Yeah, I don't even think most people can really remember how to read a map these days.
Right? Well, he looked really, really stressed. He was really stressed and he was really upset. And so he took off and kind of slammed the door. So bullets and guns, and I've seen reports that some common calibers now are like $1 a round. Was it New Zealand or Australia? Somewhere they were restricting guns sales and doing kind of like buybacks to limit people now. There's most definitely shortages. Be aware, we all hope for the best. We want to put positive vibes out there. But all throughout history, there's been people that when they get desperate, they try to take other people's stuff. So even if you're stockpiled and, you think you're all set for years even, if you don't have a way to protect yourself and you don't have people you could count on too, because what if it's just, you by yourself or just you and your spouse and your baby, and it's a crazy situation with the grid down and chaos, how are you going to be able to stay safe? Think about things like that too. And even think about things, and not to panic people, but, really fortifying your home, as well, just a little bit more, because things can get pretty crazy. Candles, most definitely, cash, silver and gold perhaps, and of course things to trade with. Because, if it breaks down enough, it's going to get to the point where people will be trading. They'll be saying, oh, you have a box of 9mm. I got, a basket of corn over here and, a whole bushel of eggs, so we'll make a deal. Lighters, matches, lighters, things like that. Painkillers, go into medicine and all sorts of things for us, again, making sure you have things like tea tree oil, a lot of the basics that you could really use in a pinch that are not necessarily pharmaceuticals. Tea tree, eucalyptus is so good for clearing out the lungs. Peppermint, essential oil, inhaling them in a diffuser could clear out your sinuses, clear out the lungs, and also get rid of bacteria. Personal hygiene items as well. Solar panels, because they'll actually do a surprisingly good job of resisting an EMP. They might suffer damage and their overall power output may be reduced by maybe 5 to 10%, but most of them should continue to work. The real issue is with the solar charge controller, which is used to charge the batteries, and the voltage inverter that converts your battery power. So you need to store those inside a Faraday cage. a stove, and the good old-fashioned stoves that you could throw wood and stuff, or even charcoal and burn. Toilet paper, obviously everybody knows about TP now. Tools, trash bags, and of course water. So here's just something a little different. 20 soothing do-it-yourself wind chimes. And I had some really nice wind chimes when I was in North Carolina. Go meditate out on the deck, and just, it was so pleasant. And a lot of times I'd be meditating there and then sense something's there, open my eyes, and there's a raccoon. He's just walking right by me saying hi, and the wind chimes are going. And sometimes it was a skunk, sometimes it wasn't a possum. Once I think it was either a little bear or a wild boar. I don't know. It took off so fast when I walked out. I could just hear it going running over the hill so fast. But here they have some really interesting ideas for wind chimes, which could be very soothing, and we need some soothing in our time.
Absolutely.
And there's links right here for the projects and how to put them together. So you see copper wind chimes. You have a sun catcher. It's pretty. Agate wind chime. That's beautiful. And we have some sea glass wind chimes. And again, there's a link to how to do all these. This is a canning lid wind chime. That's a little different. It's not going to make too much noise, I don't think. And here's some spoons and knives. And we have a moon phase wind chime. That's a unique idea. Indoor paper wind chimes. And we have some bead wind chimes with little bells on the end. Bamboo, that's a nice one. I like bamboo. Clay wind chimes. And there's, again, links to all these to give you guys some ideas. Seashells, colander and spoon planter wind chime, and a recycled one, recycled canned wind chime. Thank you guys so much for joining us and being supporters on Patreon. Also on Ko-Fi. Make sure you stop by and check out the website and read some testimonials. As always, guys, stay prepared out there. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.